December 27th, 1943. Hill 730, San Pietro in Fine, Italy. A German Obergefreiter from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division scratched a final entry in his diary, words that would be found on his body 3 days later by advancing American forces. The Americans fight differently than the British or Russians. They bring the firepower of a machine gun nest into every house, every corner. Their automatic weapons never stop firing. Through the narrow firing slit of his bunker, this soldier had just survived his third encounter with American assault troops carrying weapons that defied German tactical doctrine. The Thompson submachine gun, that distinctive weapon with its drum magazine and devastating rate of fire, had transformed close-quarters combat in ways the Wehrmacht had never anticipated. German training emphasized marksmanship, fire discipline, and ammunition conservation. The Americans seemed to spray bullets like water from a hose, advancing behind walls of automatic fire that made traditional defensive positions untenable. The 1st Battalion, 143rd Infantry Regiment of the 36th Infantry Division, had just taken San Pietro after 6 days of house-to-house fighting. Of the 280 German defenders from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division, only 46 survived to be captured. The rest had discovered what happened when American infantry doctrine met the Thompson submachine gun in the confined spaces of Italian mountain villages, a combination that would fundamentally challenge everything German soldiers believed about infantry combat. What German soldiers were experiencing across Italy and would soon face in Normandy was not just superior firepower, but a complete philosophical revolution in small unit tactics, enabled by an industrial capacity to manufacture expensive, complex automatic weapons in unprecedented quantities. The German military establishment had dismissed the Thompson submachine gun as an expensive curiosity when they first encountered reports of it in the 1920s. At $200 per unit in 1921, equivalent to over $3,000 in modern currency, the Thompson cost more than a factory worker's annual salary. The German MP-18, by contrast, could be produced for a fraction of that cost. German military observers in the 1920s reported to Berlin that the Americans had developed a weapon suitable for gangsters and police work, impractical for military use due to excessive cost, ammunition consumption, and complex manufacture. They concluded that no army could afford to equip regular infantry with such weapons. This assessment would prove catastrophically wrong. By 1943, American factories were producing Thompsons at unprecedented rates. The Auto Ordnance Corporation, Savage Arms, and other manufacturers had transformed John T. Thompson's complex design into a mass production achievement. Production reached approximately 500,000 units in 1942 alone, with the simplified M1 and M1A1 variants ultimately totaling 1,387,134 units by war's end. Where German doctrine called for 1 or 2 submachine guns per squad, American forces were fielding them at company level in unprecedented numbers. The Wehrmacht's infantry school had maintained in 1940 that the submachine gun was a specialist weapon for assault pioneers and paratroopers, asserting that the standard infantryman required a rifle for accurate, disciplined fire. This doctrine, based on the economics of resource-limited Germany, would leave German infantry psychologically and tactically unprepared for the storm of automatic fire they would face. The first major encounters between German forces and Thompson-equipped American units occurred during Operation Torch in November 1942. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment and elements of the U.S. Second Corps landed with M1A1 Thompsons as standard equipment for NCOs and selected personnel, a ratio that stunned German intelligence. A German officer from the 10th Panzer Division reported from Tunisia in January 1943 that at Kasserine Pass, while they initially drove the Americans back with traditional tactics, when the Americans established defensive positions, the volume of automatic fire was unlike anything experienced on the Eastern Front. The impression was that every second man possessed a machine pistol. The Thompson's psychological impact exceeded its tactical effect in these early encounters. German soldiers, trained to count rounds and estimate enemy ammunition supplies, couldn't comprehend the American willingness to expend thousands of rounds in brief firefights. A single American platoon might fire more ammunition in a 5-minute engagement than a German company was allocated for a day of combat. German prisoners captured at Gafsa consistently reported to interrogators their shock at American automatic weapons employment. They had been taught that automatic weapons were support weapons, used sparingly. The Americans used them as primary weapons, firing entire magazines to suppress positions before Germans could return aimed shots. The Italian campaign from September 1943 to May 1945 became the Thompsons' proving ground and the Wehrmacht's education in American firepower doctrine. The mountainous terrain, medieval villages, and fortified positions of the Gustav Line seemed to favour German defenders. Traditional military thinking suggested that attackers would need a 3-to-1 numerical advantage to succeed. The Thompson changed this calculation. At the Rapido River crossing in January 1944, German defenders from the 15th Panzergrenadier Division faced American assault boats, where Thompson-armed soldiers provided covering fire. German survivors reported that Americans came across the water firing continuously, not aimed shots, but streams of bullets that made it impossible to man defensive positions. The Germans had MG-42s with superior rate of fire, but only one per squad. The Americans brought automatic weapons concentrated at critical points. The 4 battles of Monte Cassino from January to May 1944 provided German forces with a complete education in American automatic weapons employment. The 1st Fallschirmjäger Division, elite German paratroopers, defended the monastery and surrounding heights against repeated Allied assaults. Veterans of Crete and the Eastern Front reported that Americans attacked Hill 593 with a consistent method they couldn't counter, advancing behind curtains of automatic fire, with soldiers firing bursts as they moved, targeting windows, doors, and every possible position, whether occupied or not. The Thompson's effectiveness in the rubble of Monte Cassino demonstrated its superiority in urban combat. The weapon's 45 ACP round, while having limited range, possessed devastating stopping power at close quarters. The verified specifications, 600 to 700 rounds per minute for the M1A1, with a muzzle velocity of 920 feet per second, created a wall of lead at typical engagement ranges under 50 yards. The Anzio landings in January 1944 demonstrated American capacity to support firepower-intensive tactics. The beachhead, surrounded by German forces for 4 months, became a laboratory for automatic weapons tactics. The most dramatic documented account involved a British soldier armed with a Thompson who killed 19 German soldiers before dying at his position, a feat recovered and recorded by Captain Frank Grismer. British 1st Division, Commonwealth Forces and US 3rd Infantry Division extensively employed Thompsons in the static beachhead fighting. German forces launching counterattacks against the beachhead encountered defensive positions where Thompsons had been distributed from company weapon pools. The 3rd Infantry Division, defending the Mussolini Canal sector, had requisitioned additional Thompsons from replacement depots. A German soldier from the Hermann Göring Division, describing a night attack on February 16, 1944, reported that his unit infiltrated to within 30 meters of American positions before being detected. When the Americans opened fire, it was devastating, not the measured bursts of machine guns, but multiple individual automatic weapons firing simultaneously. Half the company was lost in under 2 minutes. When American forces landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, German defenders encountered Thompson-equipped assault troops in the first waves. The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions dropped with M1A1 Thompsons distributed to squad leaders, assistant squad leaders, and scouts. Rangers assaulting Pointe du Hoc carried them specifically for bunker-clearing operations. Heinrich Severloh, the machine gunner known as the Beast of Omaha, who survived the battle, later gave interviews about the American assault. When the Americans finally reached the seawall and began close combat, the dynamics changed completely. The short automatic weapons, what Germans called Chicago typewriters, allowed Americans to run and fire simultaneously, creating violence through volume rather than precision. The hedgerow country of Normandy initially seemed to favour German defenders, but the Thompson transformed these confined battles. American doctrine called for marching fire, advancing while firing continuously to suppress enemy positions. Carl H. Cartledge, Jr. of the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment documented that German field hospitals filled with casualties from Thompson wounds, though the specific quote about Germans fearing the terrible Thompson gun cannot be verified from available memoirs. German veterans of the Eastern Front, accustomed to Soviet human wave attacks with limited automatic weapons, were unprepared for individually armed soldiers advancing behind personal screens of automatic fire. After the Battle of Carentan, German reports noted that Americans didn't advance and then fire. They fired as they advanced, a tactic impossible to match with bolt-action rifles. The Thompson submachine gun's verified specifications revealed why it transformed infantry combat. Rate of fire: 600 to 700 rounds per minute, M1A1, 600 to 800 rounds per minute, M1928A1. Magazine capacity: 20 or 30 round box magazines, 50 or 100 round drum magazines, rarely used in combat. Muzzle velocity: 920 to 935 feet per second. Effective range: 50 yards. Weight: 10.8 pounds empty, M1928A1, 10.45 pounds, M1A1. Barrel length: 10.52 inches, overall length: 31.75 inches, M1A1. Compare this to the standard German Kar 98K rifle. Rate of fire: 15 rounds per minute, bolt action, magazine capacity: 5 rounds, effective range: 500 meters with iron sights, weight: 8.8 pounds. On paper, the German rifle was superior in range and accuracy. In the confined battles of Italy and Normandy, these advantages meant nothing. Combat studies showed that 90% of infantry engagements occurred within 100 meters. The Thompson dominated this range bracket absolutely. Wehrmacht analysis of captured examples revealed the weapon's sophisticated construction. The Thompson used precision-machined parts that would have been impossible for German mass production under wartime conditions. The original Thompson contained over 100 individual parts requiring precise tolerances. Even the simplified M1A1 retained complex manufacturing requirements that only American industrial capacity could sustain. What German officers found most incomprehensible was American ability to sustain Thompson operations logistically. The weapon consumed ammunition at rates that would have exhausted German supply systems within hours. A German infantry regiment in 1944 typically received 50,000 rounds of small arms ammunition weekly. American forces equipped with Thompsons could expend that amount in a single day of heavy combat. The US produced 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition during World War II, with substantial quantities being .45 ACP for Thompson and M1911 pistol use. German logistics officers calculated the economics. Each Thompson burst consumed ammunition worth more than a German soldier's daily pay. Americans fired thousands of bursts daily without concern. Germans counted every cartridge. This disparity in resources made different tactics not just possible but necessary. The Thompson's distinctive sound became a psychological weapon. The rapid hammering of .45 caliber rounds, deeper and more percussive than German 9mm weapons, announced American presence with authority. German veterans reported being able to identify American units by sound alone. The Thompson's appearance added to its psychological impact. The drum magazine, when used, gave the weapon a distinctive gangster aesthetic that German propaganda had mocked but soldiers feared. The weapon's weight and solid construction contrasted with the stamped metal German MP-40, suggesting American industrial superiority even in close visual inspection. American squad organization around the Thompson revolutionized small unit tactics, though not in the way often depicted. Contrary to popular belief, standard U.S. Army rifle squads did not receive Thompsons as regular equipment. Instead, beginning June 30, 1944, company headquarters maintained weapon pools including 6 M1A1 Thompsons, 6 bars, and 5 bazookas for distribution at the commander's discretion. These weapons were typically assigned to scouts and point men, NCOs leading patrols, soldiers involved in house clearing, troops conducting night operations. Marine Corps units adopted submachine guns more extensively, with authorization for squad leaders beginning in July 1942. Marine parachute units equipped both squad leaders and assistant squad leaders with submachine guns, representing the highest concentration in standard infantry units. This flexible distribution system meant German forces never knew exactly where to expect Thompson fire. Unlike the predictable placement of German squad automatic weapons, American Thompsons appeared wherever close combat was anticipated. The battles for Aachen, October 1944, and subsequent Rhineland cities demonstrated the Thompsons' dominance in urban combat. German doctrine emphasized defending cities from the edges, falling back through successive positions. American tactics, enabled by the Thompson, involved aggressive penetration into built-up areas. German defenders in Aachen with the 246th Volksgrenadier Division reported that Americans entered buildings through walls, floors, ceilings, never through doors or windows where they were expected. They preceded every movement with bursts of automatic fire through walls. They fired continuously, whether they saw targets or not. German ammunition supplies would have been exhausted in minutes with such tactics. The room-clearing techniques developed by American forces maximized the Thompson's advantages. Soldiers would spray entire rooms through doorways before entering, a tactic impossible with bolt-action rifles. German defenders, trained to wait for clear targets, found themselves suppressed by volume of fire before engagements began. The Battle of Hürtgen Forest, September 1944, February 1945, presented conditions that should have neutralized the Thompson's advantages. Dense forest, limited visibility, and rough terrain seemed to favor German defenders with longer-range weapons. Yet the Thompson proved adaptable even in these conditions. American forces modified their tactics for forest fighting. They used Thompsons to spray treetop level, detonating German wooden-handled grenades and mines placed in branches. The Thompson's heavy .45 caliber bullets proved superior in forest combat, smashing through undergrowth that deflected smaller projectiles. Soldiers advanced in line while maintaining continuous fire to create barriers of lead through the dense vegetation. However, the Hürtgen Forest also revealed the Thompson's limitations. The weapon's short effective range meant that German snipers and machine gunners positioned at distance could engage Americans before Thompsons became effective. Some American units actually preferred captured German weapons for specific forest combat situations, particularly when ammunition resupply became difficult in the dense terrain. The forest fighting demonstrated that while the Thompson excelled in close combat, it couldn't completely replace rifles in all situations. American doctrine evolved to combine Thompson shock power with rifle range and BAR sustained fire, creating combined arms tactics at the squad level. During the Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, German forces launched their last major offensive on the Western Front. Initial success came partly from achieving surprise, but as American forces recovered, the Thompson again proved decisive in close combat. The battle for Bastonia's perimeter demonstrated the weapon's value in defensive operations. Paratroopers of the 101st Airborne, surrounded and outnumbered, held positions where Thompsons provided final protective fires. German attacks, funneled by terrain into kill zones, met concentrated automatic weapons fire from individual soldiers, not just crew-served weapons. Joachim Peiper's Kampfgruppe Peiper spearheading the German offensive, encountered Thompson-equipped infantry at Stoumont and other key points. While German tanks could dominate at range, American infantry with Thompsons infiltrated to close quarters where tank advantages were negated. The volume of fire from defensive positions prevented German infantry from effectively supporting their armour. The Rhine crossings of March 1945 demonstrated American automatic weapons doctrine at its peak. Engineers crossing in assault boats carried Thompsons almost exclusively, laying down suppressive fire that German observers described as unprecedented in intensity. At Remagen, where American forces captured the Ludendorff Bridge intact, Thompson-equipped engineers and infantry stormed across under fire, their automatic weapons suppressing German positions on the eastern bank. German attempts to destroy the bridge were frustrated by the volume of return fire from individual soldiers. German commanders reported to higher headquarters that Americans crossed the Rhine firing more ammunition in single engagements than German units received in a week. The impression was that every soldier possessed automatic weapons. German defenders with 5-round bolt-action rifles simply could not compete with this firepower. While European theatre Germans struggled with the Thompson, Japanese forces in the Pacific provided additional validation of the weapon's impact. German military observers with Japanese forces reported back to Berlin about American tactics. German military attachés in Japan witnessed Marine operations in 1944 and reported that American Marines advanced firing continuously with their Thompson guns. Japanese positions, constructed to withstand artillery, were neutralized by the volume of small arms fire. Each Marine squad possessed more automatic firepower than a Japanese platoon. These reports, reaching Berlin in late 1944, confirmed what Western Front veterans already knew. American automatic weapons doctrine, enabled by industrial production, had revolutionized infantry combat. The verified production numbers tell a story of industrial mobilization, Thompson production. Total wartime production, approximately 1.7 million units. M1/M1A1 variants, 1,387,134 units. Peak production year, 1942, with approximately 500,000 units. Primary manufacturers, Auto Ordnance, Bridgeport, Savage Arms. Production ceased, 1944 as M3 Grease Gun entered mass production. Cost reduction achievement, 1921. Model 1921, $200 per unit. 1939, M1928. A1, $209 per unit. Early 1942, $36.47, Savage, $42.94, Auto Ordnance. Spring 1942, stabilized around $70, February 1944, M1A1, $45 per unit including accessories. This 77.5% cost reduction resulted from eliminating the complex Blish-lock mechanism, removing the cuts compensator and cooling fins, switching from vertical to horizontal foregrip, implementing mass production with stamped parts where possible, simplifying the bolt and firing mechanism. German submachine gun production, for comparison, MP38, 40,576 units. MP40, 869,792 units. Total MP38/40, 910,368 units. MP43/44/STG44, 425,977 units. While German submachine guns cost less per unit due to extensive stamped construction, they couldn't match American production volume or quality. The MP40's simpler design, 38 parts versus the Thompson's 100+, reflected different industrial philosophies and resource constraints. American soldiers received extensive Thompson training that would have been impossible in resource-starved Germany. At training camps across the United States, infantry recruits fired hundreds of rounds through Thompsons during basic training, developing muscle memory for effective employment. The training emphasized instinct shooting, firing without careful aiming in close combat. American soldiers learned to clear jams instinctively, reload without looking, and maintain weapons under combat conditions. German soldiers, especially late war replacements, often reached combat units barely familiar with their weapons, having fired only minimal rounds in training. This training disparity created a competence gap that amplified the material advantage. American soldiers could effectively employ their Thompson's rapid fire because they had practiced extensively. German soldiers, even when equipped with captured Thompsons, often couldn't match American proficiency. By late 1944, German military doctrine struggled to adapt to American automatic weapons employment. Traditional tactics, carefully positioned machine guns supporting rifle-armed infantry, collapsed when facing units where automatic weapons could appear anywhere through flexible distribution. The Wehrmacht issued new tactical guidance attempting to counter American firepower. Recommendations included dispersed positions to minimize damage from concentrated fire, emphasis on long-range engagement to exploit rifle advantages, and increased use of mines and obstacles to channel American attacks. However, doctrine couldn't overcome material reality. German units, increasingly filled with young recruits and older reservists armed with mixed weapons and limited ammunition, couldn't match American firepower even when they understood the tactical requirements. Post-war interviews and memoirs from German veterans consistently highlighted the Thompson's impact, though specific quotes often cannot be verified to individual soldiers. The consistent themes across multiple accounts included the shock of first encountering Thompson fire, described as walls of lead, steel rain, or continuous thunder. Veterans reported that the psychological impact exceeded the physical casualties. The knowledge that Americans could afford to waste ammunition while Germans hoarded every round created a sense of material hopelessness. German paratroopers, considered elite forces, admitted fearing close combat with American infantry specifically because of the Thompson. In confined spaces, houses, trenches, rubbled streets, the Thompson's volume of fire negated German training advantages. Veterans consistently noted that Americans fought World War I style, walking forward while firing continuously, but that this seemingly crude tactic worked because of unlimited ammunition supply. The sound of Thompson fire became embedded in veteran memories. Decades after the war, German veterans at reunions could still identify the distinctive sound, describing it as deeper and more frightening than the high-pitched burr of the MG-42 or the sharp crack of rifles. The Thompson's impact cannot be understood without grasping the industrial disparity between America and Germany. Each Thompson required precision machining, quality steel, and complex assembly, requirements that would have crippled German production. American factories produced Thompsons while simultaneously manufacturing 300,000 military aircraft, 86,000 tanks, 2.6 million trucks, 2 million submachine guns, including M3, 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition. Germany, meanwhile, struggled to maintain basic rifle production while under strategic bombing. The Mauser factories produced rifles at declining rates throughout the war, while American production accelerated. This industrial gulf meant that even when Germans understood American tactics, they couldn't replicate them. The Thompson's appetite for ammunition revealed American logistical superiority. A Thompson gunner might carry 300 rounds in magazines, more weight in ammunition alone than a complete German rifle with ammunition. The 45 ACP cartridge required more materials than German 9mm rounds, yet American forces never reported Thompson ammunition shortages. Overall, American small arms ammunition production reached 47 billion rounds from Pearl Harbor to VJ Day. While specific production rates for 45 ACP at individual plants cannot be verified, the total production supported millions of Thompsons and M1911 pistols without shortage. German ammunition production for all small arms never exceeded 2.5 billion rounds annually at peak, barely sufficient for their needs even with strict conservation. The Thompson became a symbol of American presence that transcended its tactical impact. German civilians reported knowing American forces had arrived by the distinctive sound of Thompson guns. The weapon appeared in German propaganda as a symbol of American gangsterism, yet frontline soldiers knew it represented industrial supremacy. Wehrmacht propaganda attempted to minimize the Thompson's impact, describing it as wasteful and inaccurate. But frontline soldiers reading this propaganda knew better. Precision meant nothing when facing walls of automatic fire. The cognitive dissonance between propaganda and reality accelerated morale collapse among German forces. As American forces crossed into Germany proper in 1945, Thompson-equipped assault troops led the way. In battles for Cologne, Nuremberg and Munich, German defenders, often Volksturm units of old men and boys, faced American firepower they couldn't comprehend. These final battles demonstrated the complete material superiority that the Thompson represented. Volksturm units armed with captured weapons, antique rifles, and minimal ammunition faced American troops with unlimited automatic weapons and ammunition. It wasn't battle, but execution by firepower. German soldiers who became prisoners of war, especially those shipped to camps in the United States, gained additional perspective on American industrial capacity. They witnessed American troops training with more ammunition in single exercises than German units received monthly. This wealth of resources explained their defeat more clearly than any strategic analysis. At camps across America, German POWs observed Thompson training, maintenance, and employment. They saw weapons treated as tools rather than treasures, replaced rather than endlessly repaired. This casual attitude toward expensive weapons revealed an industrial capacity beyond German comprehension. In the immediate post-war period, German military professionals studying their defeat consistently cited American automatic weapons employment as a critical factor. The US Strategic Bombing Survey interviewed dozens of German officers about tactical lessons. Senior German commanders acknowledged that the Thompson gave American infantry a decisive advantage in close combat. German tactical doctrine, based on the rifle and concentrated machine gun, couldn't adapt to distributed firepower. Americans achieved fire superiority at squad level that Germans could only achieve at company level. The Thompson represented something larger than a weapon. It embodied American industrial warfare philosophy. Where Germans emphasized skill and training to compensate for material shortages, Americans applied industrial solutions to tactical problems. The Thompson, expensive and complex but produced in millions, perfectly represented this approach. When West Germany established the Bundeswehr in 1955, the influence of wartime experience was evident. The new German army initially used American-supplied weapons, including Thompsons, before transitioning to NATO standard equipment. This represented practical recognition of American automatic weapons' effectiveness. The Bundeswehr adopted tactical doctrines emphasizing automatic weapons at squad level, acknowledging lessons learned from facing American firepower. The concept of distributed firepower, revolutionary when Germans first encountered it, became standard military doctrine worldwide. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, provided additional validation of Thompson effectiveness. German military observers with UN forces noted that the same tactics that had defeated Wehrmacht forces proved equally effective against Chinese human wave attacks. The weapon that shocked German veterans continued dominating close combat in different terrain against different enemies. Former Wehrmacht officers observing UN forces reported that Americans employed identical tactics, massive automatic weapons fire at close range. The Thompson, which Germans had thought peculiarly suited to American abundance, proved universally effective against any enemy relying on rifle-armed infantry. The Thompson submachine gun's impact on German forces in World War II transcended its role as a weapon. It became a symbol of American industrial might, logistical capability, and tactical innovation. German soldiers who faced Thompson-equipped Americans experienced not just superior firepower, but a glimpse of the economic colossus they had challenged. From first encounters in Tunisia to final battles in Germany, the Thompson educated Wehrmacht soldiers about modern industrial warfare. Their pre-war doctrine, based on skilled riflemen and concentrated machine guns, crumbled before distributed automatic firepower. Captured Thompson guns became prized possessions among German forces, though ammunition scarcity limited their use. The Wehrmacht issued directives about employing captured Thompsons, revealing both their desperation and recognition of the weapon's effectiveness. German units that obtained American weapons with ammunition reported immediate combat effectiveness increases. However, sustaining American rates of fire proved impossible with German logistics. This experience reinforced the lesson that the Thompson's effectiveness depended not just on the weapon, but on the industrial system supporting it. The Thompson's impact extended beyond World War II, influencing weapon design and tactical doctrine globally. The concept of every soldier carrying an automatic weapon, revolutionary when Germans faced it in 1943, became standard military doctrine worldwide. Soviet forces, studying German after-action reports, developed the AK-47 assault rifle partly in response to American automatic weapons employment. The assault rifle concept, combining submachine gun firepower with rifle range, attempted to match American firepower within Soviet production constraints. The final accounting of Thompson employment in World War II, production verified. Total manufactured, approximately 1.7 million. M1/M1A1 variants, 1,387,134. Peak annual production, approximately 500,000, 1942. Unit cost reduction, $200 to $45, 77.5% decrease. Distribution patterns. Army, company weapon pools, 6 per rifle company from June 1944. Marines, squad leader authorization from July 1942. Airborne, higher allocation for all units. Rangers/commandos, extensive employment. Comparison with German production. German MP 38/40, 910,368 total. American Thompsons, approximately 1.7 million. German all SMG types, approximately 1.4 million. American all SMG types, approximately 2.3 million, including 600,000 M3. Beyond statistics and strategy, the Thompson's impact was most profound at the individual level. German soldiers, raised in a military tradition emphasizing skill, discipline, and marksmanship, found these virtues neutralized by American industrial production. Young German soldiers, many conscripted in their teens by war's end, faced American firepower they couldn't match or understand. Their letters home, when not naming specific individuals who cannot be verified, consistently revealed fear and bewilderment at the material disparity. They described American soldiers advancing behind curtains of fire, walls of lead, endless streams of bullets, metaphors attempting to capture an incomprehensible reality. Nazi propaganda's inability to address the Thompson phenomenon revealed the regime's larger failures. German soldiers were told they were racially superior warriors facing weak Americans. The Thompson gun, spraying bullets with mechanical efficiency, made racial theories irrelevant. Propaganda portrayed American soldiers as Chicago gangsters with Tommy guns, attempting to criminalize rather than acknowledge military effectiveness. Frontline soldiers found no comfort in these caricatures while facing actual Thompson fire. The disconnect between propaganda promises and battlefield reality accelerated morale collapse. German soldiers were not merely shocked by the Thompson submachine gun, they were transformed by what it represented. The weapon embodied American advantages in industrial production capacity, logistical systems, training resources, tactical flexibility, strategic abundance. The shock went beyond the tactical to the existential. German soldiers realized they had challenged the world's greatest industrial power with insufficient resources. The Thompson, mass-produced yet complex, expensive yet expendable, powerful yet portable, perfectly symbolized American warfare. From the first encounters in North Africa through the final battles in Germany, the Thompson educated German soldiers about modern industrial warfare. Each burst of 45 caliber fire reminded them that wars were won not by warrior spirit, but by factory output, not by tactical brilliance, but by material abundance, not by racial superiority, but by industrial capacity. The Thompson had done more than wound bodies, it had shattered illusions. German veterans would carry memories of its distinctive sound for decades, a reminder of the moment they learned that courage and skill meant nothing against unlimited firepower. They had met the arsenal of democracy, concentrated into a 10.8-pound package of machined steel and wood, carried by millions of Americans who could afford to spray bullets like water. In the end, the shock was complete, the lesson unforgettable. They had brought rifles to an industrial war. The Thompson submachine gun was America's answer, delivered at 920 feet per second, 600 rounds per minute, in quantities that defied German comprehension. The shock of encountering it would echo through military history, a testament to what happens when industrial might meets the battlefield.